Okay, let's talk about how we can actually control AI, because there's this really powerful new way to do it, and you'll never guess where the idea came from. It's not from some futuristic AI lab. Nope, it's hidden in a security problem we all thought we'd already figured out years ago.
Look, we all know the promise of AI, right? Automation, incredible insights, just speed. But here's the thing. For every single one of those promises, there's a huge peril lurking in the background. We're talking about companies dealing with massive data breaches, budgets that just go completely haywire, and AI agents being used in ways that, frankly, nobody ever saw coming. It's that classic story, with great power comes, well, great and usually invisible risk.
And really, it all boils down to two major crises. First up, you've got runaway spending. This is a huge deal for companies, because those costs can just skyrocket like you wouldn't believe. And then there's the second one, these new, super sophisticated hacks. I mean, we're seeing attacks now where an AI gets tricked into leaking sensitive code or data just by reading a support ticket. Think about that. These kinds of indirect attacks, they are just incredibly tough to get a handle on.
And this right here, this is the absolute heart of the problem. Both of these things, the hacking and the out-of-control spending, they come from the exact same place: a complete and total lack of visibility. I mean, if you can't see what your AI is doing, who it's talking to, or even what people are asking it, how can you possibly secure it? And you can forget about controlling the costs.
So, you gotta ask, how on earth do you solve a problem this big? Well, and this is the really cool part, the answer wasn't found by looking forward into the future of AI. Nope, it came from looking backward, at a classic, kind of old-school web security problem that we've been wrestling with for ages.
All right, let's jump in the time machine for a sec. We're going to rewind to an old problem, one that every single web developer is probably way too familiar with. For years, the big headache was, what do you do with these super powerful access tokens inside a web browser? I mean, a browser is it's not a secure place.
So for the longest time, the standard way of doing things was pretty simple. A user logs in, and bam, this powerful keys to the kingdom token gets stored right there in their browser. But this whole approach, it was just fundamentally broken. It was proven time and again that you just couldn't make it secure. A hacker could always find a way to snatch that token and get full access to everything.
So the solution that finally came along was this design pattern called the backend for frontend, or BFF for short. And the best way to think of it is like a secure bodyguard. It's a proxy server that stands right in between the vulnerable part, the browser, and all the really important stuff in the backend.
Now, with the BFF in place, the whole process gets way more secure. The user logs in, but this time the BFF jumps in and intercepts that powerful token. It grabs it, squirrels it away safely on the server somewhere, like in an encrypted cache. And what does the browser get? Just a simple, pretty harmless little session cookie. The real prize, that powerful token, is never, ever exposed to the dangers of the browser.
And right here, this is the big aha moment. You see, this BFF thing was originally built almost kind of grudgingly just to fix that one little security issue. But by creating it, they accidentally created this incredibly powerful position. Suddenly, by being the person in the middle of all the traffic, this whole new world of possibilities just opened up. You could log everything, audit everything, authorize everything. So here's the critical connection. The realization was that this exact same pattern, the one that secured browser tokens, could be scaled way, way up to solve these huge visibility and control problems we're seeing with AI. The idea was simple. What if you could become that mandatory gateway for every conversation between an AI agent and the large language models? If you could do that, you could finally see and control absolutely everything.
And that brings us to today. This is where that old BFF concept gets reborn for the age of AI. And it's called ARIA Shield. It is designed from the ground up to be the one and only security checkpoint for all things AI.
And it all works because of one simple golden rule. You are not allowed to talk directly to an LLM provider. No direct calls to OpenAI, no direct calls to Anthropic, none of it. Every single AI agent, every single user has to send their traffic through ARIA Shield, period. Because without being in that central spot, you can't enforce anything. This architecture forces everyone through that single checkpoint. And because all the traffic is forced through this one spot, ARIA Shield gets what we're calling 4 incredible superpowers. First, it can enforce policies from one central place. Second, it can control the actual content of the AI prompts. Third,
It can enforce hard, non-negotiable budget limits. And finally, it creates a perfect, tamper-proof audit trail of every single thing that happens.
All right, let's dive into the first superpower, policy enforcement. This is all about having one single, centralized brain that gets to make all the yes or no decisions for the entire system.
So in this setup, ARIA Shield acts as the muscle, you could say, the enforcer. It's what's called a policy enforcement point, or PEP. And for every single request that comes through, it turns to the brain of the system, the policy decision point, or PDP, and it asks one simple question. Hey, is this allowed? The PDP looks at the rules and gives back a simple allow or deny. This is huge because it takes the authorization logic out of every single application, which is really the only way you can manage this stuff at scale.
Okay, now this is where things get really, really cool. See, because ARIA Shield is sitting in the middle and inspecting all the traffic, it doesn't just check who is making the request. It can actually look inside and inspect what they're asking in real time before that question ever gets to the LLM.
So check this out. Let's say a user asks a pretty sensitive question, like, what are the typical salaries in engineering? Before that prompt even thinks about leaving the system, ARIA Shield's own internal AI analyzes it and classifies it. And in this case, it says, hey, this looks like it's about compensation, and I'm 90% sure. And this all happens lightning fast. We're talking milliseconds. And that little classification, it unlocks an incredible amount of power. Because now you can go to that central brain, the PDP, and write a rule that says, hey, if any request is classified as compensation, you deny it, unless the person asking is in the payroll group. All of a sudden, you have this incredibly specific, content-aware security that stops data leaks before they even have a chance to happen.
All right, on to that other massive crisis, the cost. Well, by being that central gateway, ARIA Shield can also act like the ultimate super strict accountant. It can enforce budgets for every single user, every team, every AI agent.
So you can literally set a policy that says, for example, this user has a hard daily budget of $10. The second their usage tries to go over that limit, ARIA Shield just stops forwarding their requests. The PDP will simply say, nope, denied, budget's gone. It's a hard stop, there's no way to get around it. Last but not least, look, visibility is great, but it's useless without trust, right? You can't just log a bunch of stuff. You have to know for an absolute fact that nobody has messed with those logs. And that's where the final superpower comes in, immutable auditing.
And this is done with a service called the Receipt Vault. Think of it like a digital notary. Every single time an important action happens, a policy decision is made, money is spent, a log of that event is sent to the Receipt Vault. The vault then cryptographically signs and hashes it, basically stamping it with a digital seal. This creates a tamper-proof receipt that proves the log is legit, giving auditors a record they can actually finally trust.
So when you put all these pieces together, what you get is a complete AI control fabric. You've got ARIA Shield as the security checkpoint, always asking the PDP, the brain, for permission. Every single one of those decisions gets notarized by the Receipt Vault so you can trust it, and all of that data feeds into an analytics system to give you that visibility you've been missing.
And that really leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Now that you know what's possible, take a look at your own setup. Is your AI a tool that you are actually managing? Or is it just a black box, full of risks you can't even begin to see?